So I went to see my therapist and my caseworker. Of course, my therapist and I, that's the first meeting that I have. And the second meeting is with my caseworker. She was sick today, so the things that we were going to do today get put off for another week. I'm pretty used to that. I don't think she's a bad person for getting sick. One thing I got to point out though, this is our planet, ours, all of ours. Hoarding is a sickness. It doesn't matter what you hoard. If you take more than you need, you have a sickness. Now, we've got two examples of American society, and only one of them is worth following: Native American society, where everything was shared. Your family worked together. That was a long time ago, though. Today, the only people who really do well in our society are people who already have it when they're born, or Hispanic families. Why am I picking on Hispanic families? I'm not. I'm saying that a family system is the only system that works in a capitalist society. A capitalist society is based on stealing from everyone. Everyone. When a homeless person is locked up on trumped up charges, who pays the bill? Donald Trump don't pay it. Joe Biden don't pay it. Bill Clinton don't pay it. Barack Obama doesn't pay it. It's paid by people like you and me. People who are not entitled to a piece of this planet that we live on. Everything is already owned. These assholes in power say, we own it, we own everything, you can't have it, you can't have it. And Americans, being the idiots that they are, go right the fuck along with it. My therapist said again today that I am not schizophrenic, I'm not delusional. Imagine that. Those are the things that people used as an excuse to deny me my human rights, my civil rights, my constitutional rights, all by calling me mentally ill. But mentally ill is not used for anything in specific. Mentally ill is a blanket term. It's like calling a black man the N word. Well, all them N words are this, and all them N words are that. All these mentally ill people this, all these mentally ill people that. We ought to do this with them. We ought to do that with them. You got all sorts of fucking ideas, but you got no goddamn clue. When I go into Pumpkin Pantry, I ask them from time to time if they have any clues for sale. I know that they don't sell any clues. I just think it's funny. Someone calling themselves Help with Psychokinesis said, we got word of your psychokinetic powers. Are you trying to join our group to hone your skins, Mr. Sean? Well, that sounds like a bunch of damn hoopla. Psychokinetic powers. I wonder what that means. We'll have to look it up. Psychokinetic definition. The supposed ability to move objects by mental effort alone. Well, let's see how well this works. My brain is attached to every part of my body. So, I suppose since I can lift this cigarette, that could be considered psychokinetic. But I think the idea here is that you can move an object from over here. Well, I got my hand out. I'm trying to get two empty packs of cigarettes to come to my hand. It's not working. It's not working, folks. I don't have psychokinetic powers. I'm not an alien. I'm not Superman, who is an alien, by the way. You know, when I was growing up, we used to have reruns of Star Trek, the original series Star Trek. And I always thought of the Vulcans as intelligent. Then they made a new series. They called it Enterprise. And in Enterprise, they showed that Vulcans are idiots. They're just one step above Ferengi and one step below Klingons. Now, obviously, this is fantasy. Obviously, there are no Vulcans. But it also goes to show perception. There's a big difference between perception and fact. You perceive that you don't have jack shit as an American because foreign immigrants are coming in and taking all your jobs and taking all your money and getting free college and all sorts of other shit. That's your perception. The reality is that they work together as a cohesive family unit, and not every Hispanic family is that way. Now, there was a guy that I worked with at the Cheesecake Factory in Boulder, Colorado. His name was Martin. Martin moved here with a whole bunch of his relatives. I think he said there was 7 or 8 of them altogether. So when they got here, they all got jobs, and the first person that they bought a vehicle for was Grandpa. The oldest person gets the first vehicle, and then they work down the line. The first vehicle that they bought was a used pickup truck that Grandpa could use to drive them around so they could do landscaping. The second vehicle that they bought, about a month later, well, it was a station wagon, so the women in the family could start a cleaning business. Now, I don't see many people around here starting businesses like that, and when they do, they don't exactly work together with their family, do they? It's every man for themselves. With inflation, we haven't been able to take care of ourselves for 3 decades. 3 decades. It's just too expensive. We're giving up too much and getting too little in return. We're paying taxes for things that only the rich have access to. Why are we spending billions of dollars of taxpayer money that these actual taxpayers, not rich assholes who inherited everything, but actual human beings who are down in the trenches, they are digging your ditches, they are cutting your trees. They are busting their asses doing manual labor that tears their bodies apart. And they're paying, and they're paying some more. Meanwhile, you get busted with a little bit of marijuana as a poor person, you're going to fucking jail and you're going to sit there for a while. Even in states where marijuana is now legal, they are still doing this shit. Take a look at the state of Colorado. This is our fucking country. This is our planet. There is no Superman. There are no Vulcans. There are a bunch of human beings, and most human beings are fucking stupid. An intelligent human being would not go along with this. We got a lot of work to do if we're going to have some sort of utopian society. And if we're going to be telling other people around the world how to think, how to believe, and how to pray, before we start passing judgment on them and dropping drones on their fucking weddings, we need to take a look at our society. Are we a utopian society? No, we are not. Rich people commit a lot of crimes, but they have the money for a lawyer. There's enough land in the United States for every single man, woman, and child in it to have 7,000 acres of inhabitable land. Inhabitable. That means you can move there and actually live there. There are sustainable resources there. 7,000 acres per person, but it's all owned by someone else. It was owned by someone else before you were born. So we got assholes who call themselves lawyers who argue over this shit. That's what they do for a living. They argue over your money. Your money that only benefits the rich. You pay for all of these machines that are supposed to help out people with cancer. Meanwhile, your insurance is probably not going to cover it if you have cancer. If it does cover a type of cancer, it's probably not the one that you're most likely to get. Kind of like flood insurance. If you live on the top of a hill, what the fuck do you need flood insurance for? But if one of the terms for living there is that you have to buy flood insurance, you're throwing your money away because it is required because a bunch of rich old farts who don't pay taxes don't think that they're spending your hard earned money fast enough. It doesn't matter who's president, that's a figurehead. Now, to put that in perspective for y'all, let's go with an old ship, an old wooden ship. You know what a figurehead is, right? On the very front of the ship, you've got basically the ship's mascot. That figurehead doesn't do jack shit. It doesn't. It doesn't do anything positive for the boat. It adds extra weight. It's usually a carving that's in all sorts of weird, well, obviously not something that's smooth and rounded that's going to be durable or resistant to the drag created by wind. Now, when you're on one of those old naval ships, sure, you've got the figurehead, but the figurehead doesn't do anything at all. That figurehead does not give commands. That figurehead does not bring you the ammo. That figurehead does not bring you the powder charges. That figurehead doesn't fire the cannons. It doesn't load the cannons. It doesn't do anything. It's just a figurehead. When you want to talk about the Trincomalee, That's a ship. Matter of fact, it's a ship that took a couple years longer to build than it was supposed to. Do you know why? Because of a ship that America had called the USS Constitution. The USS Constitution was made out of live oak and white oak. Very powerful ship, very strong ship. If you've ever picked up a piece of live oak, it's like a rock. It's not like picking up a piece of pine that you're using for building your walls. No, this is big, thick chunks of wood, hard wood. Now, that figurehead doesn't protect anyone. The sides of that ship protect you. That wood protects you. And it took people, a lot of people, working together to build that ship so that it could protect the sailors on it, so that those sailors could in turn protect their country and their country's interests. But what do you do when your country does not care? What do you do when your figureheads get to make more decisions than they're allowed to? How about when there's a problem with this country and people want to blame the figurehead? Well, the figurehead doesn't have that much power. You could blame the Indian feller, and by Indian, I mean from India. The Trincomalee was built in India. If it hadn't been for the USS Constitution sinking the brig that was carrying the ship's lines for the Trincomalee to India, that ship would have been built about 2 years earlier, and it probably would have been used against the United States. We got lucky. We had a good ship built of good wood. But if something goes wrong on that ship, whose fault is it ultimately? The captain's. It is always the captain's fault. It's not the figurehead's fault. It's not his men's fault. If his soldiers are not properly trained, it is the fault of the captain. But also, shit rolls downhill, so the captain is not likely to have to take any sort of punishment for it. Now, here we are living on a planet where 1% of the population, far less than 1% of the population, owns almost everything that you see. Now, there's a few people who own a little tiny chunk of property here and there. But we are robbing human beings of the ability to take care of themselves. We are robbing them of the ability to have what is important for survival. It is difficult to get anything else done when you are worried about the three basics: food, water, shelter. Food. If you are hungry, you can try to ignore the fact that you're hungry by keeping yourself busy, but it only lasts for so long. If you are thirsty, you can try to keep yourself busy, but your mouth is going to continue to get more and more parched, and eventually you're going to need to drink some water. Today, it's a nice day out. The sun is out. I can go for a walk all day and be fine with it, but eventually I'm going to need shelter over my head. Eventually, it's going to snow again. Eventually, it's going to rain again. And both of those can easily result in hypothermia, which kills people. Now, before you can step up on that ladder, it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Before you can start working on interpersonal relationships, before you can deal with or well, have to deal with your family or your other loved ones, you have to have the basics first. And I have been prevented from having the basics for at least 5 years now. 5 years of law enforcement illegally preventing me from my basic human rights. Now, a lot of people want to tell me ignorant shit, like people who have lost their jobs and then they want a free government handout by saying, oh, well, I should be getting, what do they call that? When you lose your job and the government pays you for it. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Anyway, you guys probably got it figured out already. You probably already know what it's called. It's just I'm having a brain fart. Now we're living in a really screwed up situation here where people have their opinions, but their opinions are devoid of facts, and they don't want to look at facts. That makes it difficult for everyone. Christians do this especially. And that makes it complicated for everybody who's a Christian and everybody who's not. There's a meme I seen said, don't argue with a Christian, or arguing with a Christian is like playing chess with a pigeon. You can be the best chess player in the world, but really all the pigeon's going to do is shit all over the board, knock over the pieces, and strut around like he's victorious. Now, the Bible's got a lot of bullshit in it. There's a lot of stuff that it says one thing in one part of the Bible and one thing in another. And manipulators know which is which. They know which parts of the Bible they can twist and manipulate to say that God ordained it. God says it's okay for you to be a judgmental fucking cunt. But then, obviously, we can't have reciprocated. We can't have equality. You're a Christian. You think you're better than everybody. So then, when you are judged in return, not judged for no reason, but judged back, you go, well, nobody can judge me but God. That is not true. That is entirely untrue. Let's say your neighbor thinks that you're a child molester. He can not only judge you, he can pass judgment on you. Now, let me explain to you the difference. When I was in Boulder, Colorado, I knew that most of the people that I was handing out blankets to were drug addicts. The most popular drug, of course, is alcohol. Now, when somebody came up to me needing a blanket, sure, they might have been a meth addict. They might have been an alcoholic. And I probably knew that they were a meth addict or an alcoholic. But I still saw them as a human being and I still gave them a blanket. Yes, I judged them. I judged them to be alcoholics or drug addicts. But I did not pass judgment on them. See, if I was passing judgment on them, I would not have given them a blanket. They are still human beings and they deserve not to freeze to death. Now, we all have to live on this planet, but most of us are only allowed temporary stays. Temporary. When you rent a place, that's temporary. You're not buying it. Your money is going right down the toilet, and you are spending more money per month for your shitty ass apartment than if you were to pay your mortgage. But then let's say you get a 30-year loan. By the end of that 30 years, you got to have that loan paid off. You get that 30-year loan so that you can buy yourself a house. But then you have to stay working for the next 30 years. If you injure your back, you can get workman's comp. Maybe. Do you have help with it? Are you called mentally ill? Do you fit the criteria of American bias? See, there's a lot of bias we got in America. Like the idea that men can't be victims of sexual assault, or the idea that white people cannot be victims of racism. But we see every day that American bias is false. All of these Americans holding these bias know that their bias are false. All of these Americans choose to pretend because they want someone to take their shit out on. They want someone to victimize. They want someone lower on the fucking totem pole than them because that magically makes their position in life not so bad. There are people who tell me ignorant shit like, well, it could be worse. You could be black. Well, you know what? It could be worse for you too. You could be homeless. If you are homeless, you are over 250 times more likely to be killed by a police officer than a black man. Over 250 times more likely. That's because there's about 60 million black folks in America and only about 500,000 homeless people. But there's about 3 times as many homeless people incarcerated right now at this moment. Their crime? Being homeless, being broke, not having the money for a real attorney. So they're stuck with a public pretender. One of my public pretenders, Amanda Balehash from Boulder, Colorado, is now a judge in Adams County. That's the county that Natalie Bollinger was shot in the head in. Amanda Balehash did not do her job. And I was illegally prevented from turning in predators like Amanda Balehash and Jai Rogers and Zoe Tanner and Waylon Lolatai, all over the label of mentally ill. Meanwhile, every single cop out there works for the government. None of them work for you. Not even one police officer in this country works for you, the American people. Not one. They all work for the government. They work for the 1%ers who own, well, even you. They do own you. Because there is no place for you to be. If you're on a public street, they can harass you, they can assault you, they can fucking murder you, for Christ's sake. I'm after equality. In order to have equality, we need to throw away religion. You are allowed to have your religion, but don't be a fucking moron when it comes to decision making. A 2,000-year-old book of bullshit is no basis for a goddamn thing having to do with intelligent reasoning skills. Your competency is compromised because you believe in an imaginary fucking friend. Maybe your God is real. Maybe your God is not. Maybe there is a God. Maybe there isn't. But I sure as fuck am not going to believe in any of yours. We've already proven that lots of stuff in the Bible is bullshit. Bullshit. If you want to say that you're a Christian, that's the New Testament. The New Testament. But every time you do something evil that the New Testament says is wrong, you go back to the Old Testament to a part that you can twist and manipulate to try to make yourself feel better about what you've done. This planet is ours. We either fight for it or we lay down and take it like we have been. That's the problem with people's advice. People keep wanting to give me advice that is not good advice. Let it go if you're allowed to let it go, but I'm not. Every aspect of my life has been destroyed. My ability to go hang out with positive people does not fucking exist. I live in Chapel, fucking Nebraska. Most of the people in this town are either stuck up assholes or they're fucking miserable. And most of those stuck up assholes are probably miserable too. When I lived in Boulder, Colorado, I had the time of my life. I was homeless nearly the whole time. But I was allowed to be a good person. I was allowed to make jokes. If myself and Clint Snell tell exactly the same joke, people might laugh when he tells the joke. If I tell the joke, people are going to try to twist it and contort it and manipulate it to somehow make me out to be some sort of a terrible person who's saying that it's okay to go hurting people, and it's not. But at this point, America is under siege. Americans are under siege by the 1% in power and all of the fucking idiots who do what those rich assholes tell them to. That includes judges, it includes lawyers, it includes public pretenders, it includes sheriff's departments, it includes police departments, it includes the FBI. None of these people are fighting for your rights. None of these people are fighting for my rights. Complete and total fucking lack of morality in this country.